The glare from my laptop screen burned my eyes as I stared at the words, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. My hands trembled, hovering over the keyboard. This couldn't be real. It had to be a mistake. "Lucy, are you coming to bed?" Owen's voice drifted down the hallway, snapping me out of my trance. I slammed the laptop shut, my heart pounding. "Just a minute!" I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. As I made my way to our bedroom, my mind raced. The email I'd stumbled upon was unmistakably from my husband to my sister Helen. The words passionate, longing, and our secret jumped out at me, searing themselves into my brain. Owen was already under the covers when I entered, his reading glasses perched on his nose as he scrolled through his phone. He looked up and smiled, the same smile I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. "Everything okay, hon?" I forced a smile. "Fine. Just lost track of time." As I slipped into bed beside him, I couldn't help but study his face. Was there any hint of guilt? Any sign that he was living a double life? But all I saw was the same Owen I'd always known. Kind eyes, slightly crooked nose from a childhood accident, and that dimple in his left cheek when he smiled. "Helen called earlier," he said casually, setting his phone on the nightstand. "She wants to get together for dinner this weekend. What do you think?" My stomach churned. Oh, did she say why?" Owen shrugged. "Just to catch up, I guess. It's been a while since we've all gotten together." I turned away, pretending to fluff my pillow to hide the emotions I knew were written all over my face. Maybe. I'll have to check my schedule. "Come on, Luce," Owen said, his hand resting on my shoulder. "It'll be fun. You and Helen used to be so close." I flinched at his touch, memories of the email flooding back. How long had this been going on? How many times had I sat across the dinner table from them, oblivious to their secret glances and hidden touches? "I'm just tired," I mumbled, pulling the covers up to my chin. "We'll talk about it tomorrow." Owen leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Good night, sweetheart, I love you." The words, once a comfort, now felt like daggers in my heart. I lay there in the dark, listening to Owen's breathing slow as he drifted off to sleep. How could he lie there so peacefully while my world was crumbling around me? My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and I reached for it, grateful for the distraction. It was a text from Helen. "Hey sis, can't wait to see you this weekend. I've got some big news to share." I stared at the message, my vision blurring with unshed tears. What news could she possibly have? Was she going to confess? Or was this some new betrayal? As the night wore on, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, replaying every interaction I'd had with Helen and Owen over the past few months. Had there been signs I'd missed? Moments of tension or awkwardness I'd brushed off? By the time the first rays of sunlight peeked through the curtains, I'd made up my mind. I couldn't confront them yet, not without more evidence. I needed to know the full extent of their betrayal before I made my next move. As Owen's alarm went off and he stirred beside me, I steeled myself for the day ahead. I would play the role of the loving wife and doting sister, all while plotting my revenge. They had no idea what was coming. Morning. "Beautiful," Owen murmured, pulling me close for a kiss. I returned the kiss, tasting the bitterness of his lies. "Good morning," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "So about dinner with Helen this weekend, I think it's a great idea." The days leading up to our dinner with Helen crawled by, each moment a torturous exercise in maintaining my composure. As I stood in front of the mirror applying a final touch of lipstick, I couldn't help but wonder how long I'd been living this lie. "You look beautiful," Owen said, appearing behind me. His hands rested on my shoulders, and I fought the urge to shrug them off. I forced a smile. "Thanks. We should get going." The drive to the restaurant was filled with idle chatter about work and neighborhood gossip. As Owen prattled on, my mind wandered to memories of Helen and me as children. We'd been inseparable once, sharing secrets and dreams. When had that changed? Helen was already at the table when we arrived, her face lighting up as she saw us. "Lucy! Owen!" she exclaimed, jumping up to hug us both. I stiffened at her touch. Memories of the email flooding back. Had she always hugged Owen for a beat too long? As we settled into our seats, Helen couldn't contain her excitement. "I have big news," she announced, her eyes sparkling. "I'm moving back to town." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What?" I managed to choke out. Owen's reaction was equally surprising. He paled slightly, his fork clattering against his plate. "That's unexpected," he said, his voice strained. Helen didn't seem to notice our discomfort. "I know, right? It all happened so fast. I got a job offer I couldn't refuse, and, well, I've missed being close to family." Her eyes flicked to Owen for a split second, so quickly I almost missed it. But it was enough to confirm my worst fears. "That's wonderful news, Helen," I said, plastering on a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Where will you be staying?" "Oh, I haven't figured that out yet," she replied, waving her hand dismissively. "I was hoping I could crash with you guys for a few weeks while I apartment hunt, just like old times, right?" The thought of Helen in our house, sleeping under our roof while carrying on an affair with my husband, made me physically ill. I opened my mouth to refuse, but Owen beat me to it. "Of course," he said, his voice overly cheerful. "We'd love to have you, wouldn't we, Lucy?" I felt trapped, cornered by their expectant gazes. "Sure," I heard myself say, as if from a great distance, just like old times. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. I picked at my food, my appetite gone, as Helen chattered on about her new job and her plans for the move. Owen was uncharacteristically quiet, his eyes darting between Helen and me. As we said our goodbyes in the parking lot, Helen pulled me into another hug. "I'm so excited, Luce," she whispered. "It'll be just like when we were kids." I pulled away, unable to bear her touch any longer. "Yeah," I muttered, "just like that." The drive home was silent, the tension between Owen and me palpable. As we pulled into our driveway, I couldn't hold back anymore. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Owen's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What are you talking about?" I turned to face him, anger and hurt bubbling up inside me. "How long have you been sleeping with my sister?" The color drained from Owen's face. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, at a loss for words. "I saw the email," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "I know everything." Owen's shoulders slumped in defeat. "Lucy, we never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake." I laughed bitterly. "A mistake? Is that what you call betraying your wife with her own sister?" "It's over," Owen pleaded. "I swear, Lucy, it was just a fling. It didn't mean anything." His words cut deep, each one a fresh wound. "And now she's moving in with us," I said, the reality of the situation hitting me anew. "How convenient for you both." I got out of the car, slamming the door behind me. As I walked towards the house, I heard Owen calling after me, but I didn't turn back. My mind was racing, piecing together a plan. If they thought they could continue this charade under my own roof, they had another thing coming. I may have been blindsided by their betrayal, but I wouldn't be their fool any longer. It was time to take control of this narrative, and I knew exactly where to start. The day Helen moved in, I felt like a stranger in my own home. I watched from the kitchen window as Owen helped her carry boxes from her car, their easy laughter drifting through the open window. My hands shook as I gripped my coffee mug, knuckles white with the effort of maintaining my composure. "Lucy?" Helen's voice rang out as she entered the kitchen. "Where should I put my toiletries?" I turned, forcing a smile. "Guest bathroom. Top drawer," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. Helen beamed, oblivious to my inner turmoil. "Thanks, sis. It's so great to be here. Just like old times, right?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As Helen bounded back upstairs, I caught Owen's eye. He looked away quickly, guilt written all over his face. The next few days were a special kind of hell. I found myself hyper-aware of every interaction between Helen and Owen, analyzing every glance, every casual touch. Were they laughing too much at each other's jokes? Did their hands linger too long when passing the salt at dinner? One evening, as I was folding laundry in our bedroom, I overheard them talking in the hallway. "We can't keep doing this," Owen whispered urgently. "Lucy's getting suspicious." Helen's reply was too low for me to hear, but Owen's response made my blood run cold. I know, but we need to be more careful. Maybe we should cool things off for a while, at least until you find your own place." I dropped the shirt I was folding, my hands trembling. They were still seeing each other, right under my nose. The next morning, I woke to find a note from Owen on the kitchen counter. "Early meeting. Won't be home for dinner. Love you." The words mocked me, each one a fresh betrayal. As I crumpled the note, Helen breezed into the kitchen. "Morning, Luce. Want to grab lunch later? We haven't had much sister time lately." I stared at her, wondering how she could act so normal, so loving, while destroying my life. "Sorry," I managed. "I have errands to run." Helen's face fell. "Oh, okay. Maybe another time?" I nodded non-committally and fled the house, unable to bear another moment in her presence. I found myself driving aimlessly, eventually ending up at the park where Owen and I had our first date. As I sat on a bench watching families and couples stroll by, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Janet, my mother-in-law. "Lucy, dear, haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay?" I stared at the message, tears welling up in my eyes. Janet had always been more of a mother to me than my own. The thought of her disappointment in Owen, in all of us, was almost too much to bear. Before I could talk myself out of it, I hit the call button. "Lucy?" Janet's warm voice answered. "Is everything all right?" And just like that, the dam broke. Through sobs, I poured out the whole sordid story. The email, the dinner, Helen moving in, and my suspicions that the affair was ongoing. Janet listened in stunned silence. When I finally ran out of words, she spoke, her voice thick with emotion. "Oh, Lucy, I'm so sorry. What can I do?" I took a deep breath, suddenly feeling lighter than I had in weeks. "Can I come over? I don't think I can go back to that house right now." "Of course, dear. I'll put the kettle on." As I drove to Janet's, a plan began to form in my mind. I couldn't confront Owen and Helen yet, not without irrefutable proof. But with Janet's support, I could start gathering evidence. And when the time came to expose their betrayal, I'd be ready. For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt a glimmer of hope. I wasn't alone in this fight anymore. And with Janet by my side, I was ready to reclaim my life and my dignity. The annual family barbecue loomed on the horizon. A day I once looked forward to, but now dreaded. As I stood in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for a salad, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. "Need any help?" Helen's voice startled me and the knife slipped, nicking my finger. "Damn it!" I hissed, grabbing a paper towel to stem the blood. Helen rushed over, concern etched on her face. "Oh, Lucy, I'm so sorry. Here, let me see." I jerked away from her touch. "I'm fine," I snapped, harsher than I intended. Hurt flashed across Helen's face. "Luce, what's going on? You've been so distant lately. Did I do something wrong?" The irony of her question nearly made me laugh. Instead, I forced a smile. "It's nothing, just stressed about the barbecue." Helen nodded, though she didn't look convinced. "Well, if you need to talk." "Actually," I interrupted, an idea forming. "Could you run to the store? We're out of charcoal." Once Helen was gone, I made my move. I'd been waiting for a chance to search her room, and this was it. My heart pounded as I slipped into the guest bedroom, feeling like a thief in my own home. I rifled through drawers and closets, not sure what I was looking for, but knowing I'd recognize it when I saw it. Just as I was about to give up, I spotted Helen's laptop peeking out from under the bed. With shaking hands, I opened it. To my surprise, it wasn't password protected. I clicked on her email, my conscience screaming at me to stop, but I couldn't. I had to know. And there it was. Dozens of emails between Helen and Owen, dating back months. My eyes skimmed over words like love, future, and can't wait to be together. But it was the most recent email that made my blood run cold. "We need to tell Lucy soon. I can't keep living this lie. I love you, and I want to start our life together. Owen." The laptop slipped from my hands, clattering to the floor. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning a future together. My future was being erased, rewritten without me in it. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at nothing, before I heard the front door open. "Lucy?" "I'm back with the charcoal," Helen called. I scrambled to my feet, hastily shoving the laptop back under the bed. As I left the room, I nearly collided with Owen in the hallway. "Whoa, careful there," he said, steadying me with his hands. The same hands that had typed those betraying words. "What were you doing in Helen's room?" I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of the man I thought I knew. "Just looking for an extra tablecloth." I lied smoothly. "For the barbecue." Owen nodded, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Right, the barbecue. Listen, Lucy, there's something I need to talk to you about after the party. It's important." My heart raced. Was this it? Was he planning to end our marriage at our family gathering? "Can't we talk now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Owen shook his head. "It's not the right time. After the barbecue, okay?" As he walked away, I felt something inside me harden. I'd been passive for too long, waiting for confessions, hoping it was all a misunderstanding. But now I knew the truth, and I wasn't about to let them control the narrative any longer. I pulled out my phone and texted Janet, "Change of plans. We need to talk before the barbecue. It's time." Janet's reply came almost instantly. "I'm here for you, Lucy. Whatever you need." As I pocketed my phone, a strange calm settled over me. The barbecue was no longer something to dread. It was an opportunity. Owen and Helen wanted to start their new life? Fine. But first, they'd have to face the consequences of their actions. And I would make sure every single person at that barbecue knew exactly what kind of people they really were. I sat in Janet's cozy living room, my hands wrapped around a steaming mug of tea. The familiar scent of lavender and chamomile did little to calm my frayed nerves. Janet settled into the armchair across from me, her kind eyes filled with concern. "Lucy, dear," she began gently, "tell me everything." And so I did. The words poured out of me like a dam breaking. The initial email discovery, Helen moving in, the overheard conversations, and finally, the damning emails I'd found on Helen's laptop. As I spoke, Janet's expression shifted from shock to disbelief to anger. "I can't believe Owen would do this," she whispered, shaking her head. "And Helen, your own sister. It's unconscionable." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and renewed pain at having someone else acknowledge the betrayal. "I don't know what to do, Janet. They're planning to tell me after the barbecue. I think Owen's going to ask for a divorce." Janet reached out and squeezed my hand. "Not if we have anything to say about it. Lucy, you have a choice to make. You can wait for them to control the narrative, or you can take charge." I looked up, meeting her determined gaze. "What do you mean?" "The barbecue," Janet said, a glint in her eye. "Everyone will be there. If you want to expose their affair, that would be the perfect opportunity." My heart raced at the thought. "But wouldn't that just cause a scene? Make everything worse?" Janet leaned forward. "Sometimes, dear, things need to get worse before they can get better. You've been suffering in silence for too long. It's time for Owen and Helen to face the consequences of their actions." As I considered her words, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Owen. "Where are you? Helen's asking about dinner plans." The casual tone, as if nothing was wrong, made my blood boil. I showed the message to Janet, who frowned. "They're acting like nothing's amiss," she said, "planning their future while pretending to care about dinner plans. It's despicable." Something inside me snapped. The hurt, the betrayal, the anger, it all crystallized into a hard, cold resolve. "You're right," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "It's time they faced the music. But I need proof. Something concrete to show everyone." Janet nodded, a determined look on her face. "We'll find it. Between the two of us, we'll uncover every bit of evidence we can. Emails, text messages, credit card statements, anything that proves their affair." As we began to plan, I felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. Part of me still hoped it was all a misunderstanding, so that there would be some innocent explanation, but the rational part of my brain knew better. "What about George?" I asked suddenly, thinking of Owen's father. "Should we tell him before the barbecue?" Janet shook her head. "No, he needs to hear it with everyone else. George has always been proud of Owen. This will be a shock, but he needs to see the truth for himself." As the afternoon wore on, our plan took shape. We would gather as much evidence as possible over the next few days. Then, at the barbecue, when everyone was present, we would confront Owen and Helen with the truth. As I prepared to leave, Janet pulled me into a tight hug. "Remember, Lucy," she whispered, "you're stronger than you know, and you're not alone in this." Driving home, I felt a strange sense of calm. The decision was made. In just a few days, everything would change. My marriage, my relationship with my sister, my entire life. It would all be different after the barbecue. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Owen and Helen through the kitchen window, laughing as they prepared dinner together. The sight that would have once filled me with warmth now only steeled my resolve. Let them laugh, I thought. Let them think they have it all figured out. Because come Saturday, their little world was going to come crashing down around them, and I would be the one to light the match. The day of the barbecue arrived, and with it a sense of impending doom. I moved through the morning in a haze, setting up tables and preparing food with mechanical precision. Owen and Helen flitted about, helping with preparations, their false cheer grating on my nerves. As guests began to arrive, I felt Janet's reassuring presence at my side. "Are you ready?" she whispered. I nodded, my throat too tight for words. In my pocket, I felt the weight of the USB drive containing all the evidence we'd gathered. Emails, text messages, even credit card statements showing secret hotel stays. It was a ticking time bomb, and I held the detonator. The backyard filled with laughter and chatter as family members mingled. I watched as Owen charmed our cousins with his usual easygoing manner, while Helen regaled our aunts with stories of her new job. How could they act so normal when they were about to destroy everything? George, Owen's father, approached me with a warm smile. "Lucy, dear, this is a wonderful spread. You've outdone yourself." I forced a smile, guilt gnawing at me. George had always been kind to me, treating me like a daughter. How would he react when he learned the truth about his son? As the afternoon wore on, I felt my resolve wavering. Maybe I could just confront Owen and Helen privately. Maybe we could work this out without involving the entire family. But then I saw it. A fleeting touch, a secret smile exchanged between my husband and sister when they thought no one was looking. My anger flared anew, hot and righteous. I caught Janet's eye and gave a slight nod. It was time. Janet clinked her glass, calling for everyone's attention. Family, if I could have a moment. Lucy has something she'd like to share with us all. All eyes turned to me, and for a moment, I froze. Owen looked confused, while Helen's expression flickered with something like fear. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. I have something important to tell you all. It's not easy, but... My voice cracked, and I saw concern etched on the faces around me. That's when Owen stepped forward, placing a hand on my arm. Lucy, what's going on? Are you okay? His touch, once comforting, now felt like a brand on my skin. I jerked away, anger giving me strength. No, Owen, I'm not okay, and it's time everyone knew why. With shaking hands, I pulled out the USB drive and held it up. On this drive is evidence of a betrayal so deep, so personal, that it's torn my world apart. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Helen stepped forward, her face pale. Lucy, what are you talking about? I turned to face her, my sister, my betrayer. I'm talking about your affair with my husband, Helen. I know everything. The silence that followed was deafening. Owen's face drained of color while Helen's eyes darted frantically between us. It's not. We didn't. Owen stammered, but I cut him off. Don't lie, not anymore. I turned to address the stunned family. For months, Owen and Helen have been carrying on behind my back, planning a future together while pretending to love me. Gasps and shocked exclamations erupted. George stepped forward, his face a mask of disbelief. Owen, is this true? Owen's silence was damning. Helen burst into tears, but I felt no sympathy. With trembling hands, I connected the USB to the outdoor TV we'd set up for the barbecue. Emails and text messages flashed across the screen, laying bare every secret, every lie. As the evidence mounted, I watched the faces of my family shift from shock to anger to disgust. Owen and Helen stood frozen, exposed and humiliated. I turned to face them, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. You wanted to start a new life together? Well, here's your chance, but it won't include me, and after today, I doubt it will include anyone else here either. The backyard erupted into chaos. Accusations flew, tears flowed, and in the midst of it all, I stood, feeling strangely calm. The bomb had detonated, and the fallout was just beginning. As Owen reached for me, his face pleading, I stepped back. This was far from over, but for the first time in months, I felt in control. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The backyard had become a battlefield, with family members taking sides and hurling accusations. I stood in the eye of the storm, watching as years of trust and love crumbled around me. Helen was the first to break the shocked silence that followed my revelation. Lucy, please, she sobbed, reaching for me. It's not what you think. We never meant to hurt you. I recoiled from her touch. Not what I think. I read your emails, Helen. I heard your conversations. You and Owen were planning a life together behind my back. Owen stepped forward, his face ashen. Lucy, we can explain. It just happened. We tried to fight it, but... But what? I spat, my voice rising. But you couldn't help betraying your wife? Your sister? Did you think about me at all while you were sneaking around? George, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly roared to life. Owen, how could you do this to Lucy, to our family? He turned to Helen, his eyes blazing. And you. We welcomed you into our home, treated you like family, and this is how you repay us? Helen crumpled under the weight of his words, but I felt no sympathy. My own parents had passed years ago, and the Thompsons had become my family. Helen had betrayed not just me, but all of us. Janet appeared at my side, her hand steady on my arm. Lucy, dear, perhaps we should take this inside, away from prying eyes. But I was beyond caring about propriety. No, I said firmly. I'm done hiding. I'm done pretending everything is okay when it's not. They wanted to start a new life? Well, let's air out all the dirty laundry first. I turned to the gathered family members, some of whom were trying to discreetly leave. Did you know, I said, my voice carrying across the yard, that while I was caring for Aunt Martha during her chemo, these two were shacking up in hotels? Or that the business trip Owen took last month was actually a romantic getaway with my sister? Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Owen stepped toward me, his hands outstretched. Lucy, please, we can work this out. I love you. It was a mistake. Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration, of feeling second best to my vibrant, carefree sister, came pouring out. A mistake? I laughed bitterly. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is burning dinner. This is a choice. You chose to betray me, to lie to me, to make me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong. I turned to Helen, who was openly weeping now. And you, my own sister, how could you? Was it worth it? Destroying our family for what? A few cheap thrills? Helen's sobs turned to hiccups as she tried to speak. Lucy, I'm so sorry. I never meant, we never thought. That's right. I cut her off. You never thought. About anyone but yourselves. The backyard had fallen silent, all eyes on our family drama. I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me, even as my world crumbled around me. I want you both out of my house, I said, my voice steady. Tonight. I don't care where you go, but I never want to see either of you again. Owen's face crumpled. Lucy, please, we can fix this. Go to counseling, work things out. I shook my head, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. There's nothing to fix, Owen. You and Helen broke it beyond repair. Now you get to live with the consequences. As I turned to walk away, Helen made one last desperate plea. Lucy, wait. We're sisters. We can't end like this. I paused, looking back at her tear-stained face. For a moment, I saw the little girl who used to follow me around, begging to play with her big sister. But that girl was gone, replaced by a woman I no longer recognized. We ended the moment you decided my husband was more important than our sisterhood, I said softly. Goodbye, Helen. With that, I walked into the house, leaving behind the shocked silence of my family, the broken remnants of my marriage, and the sister I once loved more than anyone in the world. The door closed behind me with a final, resounding click, and I knew nothing would ever be the same again. 6 months after the disastrous family barbecue, I stood in front of an easel, paintbrush in hand, staring at the canvas before me. The divorce papers had been signed, the house sold, and my old life packed away in boxes. The woman I used to be, the dutiful wife, the loving sister, was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more resilient. A knock at the door of my new apartment startled me from my reverie. I opened it to find Janet, her arms laden with groceries. I thought you could use some company, she said, her warm smile a balm to my still healing heart. As we prepared dinner together, Janet updated me on the family gossip. Owen and Helen had moved away, their relationship already strained by the weight of their betrayal. George had thrown himself into work, unable to reconcile his son's actions. And you, Lucy? Janet asked, her eyes searching my face. How are you really doing? I paused, considering her question. I'm okay, I said slowly. Some days are harder than others, but I'm finding my way. Janet nodded, reaching out to squeeze my hand. I'm so proud of you, dear. You've shown incredible strength. After dinner, I showed Janet my latest paintings. Her eyes widened as she took in the vibrant colors and bold strokes. Lucy, these are amazing. I had no idea you were so talented. I felt a flush of pride. Neither did I, really. It's something I loved as a girl, but I gave it up when I married Owen. Now it feels like I'm rediscovering a part of myself I'd forgotten. As Janet prepared to leave, she hesitated at the door. George asked about you, she said softly. The business connection with your grandfather. He wants to know if you'd be interested in taking a more active role. I blinked, surprised. Really? Even after everything that happened? Janet nodded. George respects you, Lucy. He sees your strength, your integrity. And I think he feels guilty about Owen's actions. I promised to think about it, and as I closed the door behind Janet, I felt a surge of possibility. My life, which had seemed so bleak just months ago, was opening up in ways I never expected. The next morning, I woke early, feeling restless. On impulse, I grabbed my car keys and drove to the beach where Owen and I had our first date. As I walked along the shore, the cool sand beneath my feet, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain of betrayal still lingered, a dull ache in my chest, but it no longer consumed me. I thought of Helen, my little sister who had once been my best friend. Part of me still loved her, still missed her, but I knew that forgiveness, if it ever came, was a long way off. As the sun rose over the water, painting the sky in brilliant pinks and oranges, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. George, it's Lucy. I've been thinking about your offer. An hour later, I stood in front of my easel again, but this time with a new perspective. The canvas, once blank and intimidating, now seemed full of possibility. With bold strokes, I began to paint, letting my emotions flow through the brush. The painting that emerged was a self-portrait, but not of the woman I used to be. This Lucy was strong, her eyes clear and determined, her posture straight and proud. She stood alone, but not lonely, surrounded by vibrant colors that spoke of hope and new beginnings. As I stepped back to survey my work, I realized that this painting was more than just art. It was a declaration of independence, a promise to myself. The road ahead might be uncertain, but I was ready to face it head on. Owen and Helen had betrayed me, yes. They had shattered the life I thought I wanted. But in doing so, they had inadvertently set me free. Free to rediscover my passions, to forge new connections, to build a life that was truly my own. I picked up my phone once more, this time to call Janet. "I've made a decision," I told her, my voice steady and sure. "I'm going to take George up on his offer, and I'm going to have an art show. Will you help me plan it?" Janet's enthusiastic response brought a smile to my face. As I hung up, I turned back to my self-portrait. The woman on the canvas looked back at me, her eyes full of promise. "Well, Lucy," I said aloud, "looks like we're just getting started." And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly, genuinely excited for what the future might hold.